Garik Hospital, built and owned by the Federal Capital Territory Administration. The FCT administration had fully managed the hospital until 2007, when it sought a new private management. After a transparent and competitive bidding process, a concession agreement between the FCT administration and owners of Nisa Premier, one of the top-ranked hospitals in Nigeria, was signed.
And then, of course, this is an attempt to see whether if the private and public sector can get together and provide services to the people of the quality at a price that they can afford.
Right, Garik Hospital was the very first government-owned hospital in the FCT, and there was a crippling strike in the FCT, and the then FCT Minister, His Excellency Malam El-Rufai, thought it wise to be able to concession one of the government-owned hospitals to be privately managed. The purpose of this was, at strike periods, you will certainly have one government-owned hospital that will be able to provide services for residents of the FCT. And under the terms of that agreement, the Nisa Premier Hospital was to raise funds, provide facilities, pay the staff, and provide world-class services.
This is an experiment. The government and ourselves must sit together and look at the reality and the lessons learned from this, rather than hard and fast rules. Oh, it was for 10 years or 15 years, and so be it. What lessons has the nation to learn from it, and how will that influence future activities? If the government gives a listening ear to the reality, I will be a fulfilled man, because I went into it with a heart of doing what nobody else had done, experimentation, rather than a heart of an entrepreneur.
It has been a model partnership, one that's emulated in several other sectors. It's in line with the public-private partnership of the federal government, and it's one partnership that's scored great success.
Being able to initiate and keep at a level, professionally, getting the open heart surgeries moving and the kidney transplants has been a great deal of satisfaction. A lot of work for us, a lot of sacrifices, but at the end of the day, it's been very satisfying.
Garik Hospital, in terms of helping the infertile couples, is the only general hospital in this country that produces test tube babies effortlessly. That has to continue.
See Garik Hospital able to add on tertiary care services, and presently Garik Hospital offers kidney transplants, open heart surgeries. In the FCT, a few years back, or at the time Garik Hospital started, there was technically only one functional ICU in the whole of the FCT, and that was in National Hospital. So we can say that Garik Hospital has actually kickstarted an ICU, and that has been a model for many of the other private hospitals in the FCT to be able to copy.
The concession spurred fresh vigor and determination among partners to become a world-class healthcare facility in Nigeria, as well as provide not just affordable but excellent healthcare services to citizens. The management of Garik Hospital have for the past 10 years lived up to that vision.
Garik, if she has done nothing else, she's proven that point. It has fast forwarded. Garik stands out clearly as a pillar when you compare it to other, FCT hospitals at the moment. And it shouldn't be allowed, the idea should not be allowed to die. It must continue one way or the other.
The other things that we've done is to make life easy for patients coming in, especially in the outpatients department, and for operations, for blood tests, for radiology investigations, is to introduce the electronic medical records system. and that has worked very well. It has reduced the waiting time of patients seeing consultants and other doctors.
Outside the public sector as such. So that will be the thing. Secondly, I think the question of quality of the care itself. The system as it exists currently, the private sector seems to do its own little job.
The hospital is a model with more than 100 beds, and it has set the pace in both general and specialized medical care. Nigerians collectively spend as much as $1 billion yearly to get medical care abroad. But for those who can't afford to travel, relying on the country's healthcare facilities is their only option. But this decade-long public-private partnership has provided an alternative that inspires confidence.
Secondary care services have actually improved. And what we do see is that virtually all the services that should be provided in a secondary healthcare facility are being provided in Garik Hospital, and that also efficiently.
It's been all right. I like the facility, I like the environment, and I like the doctors. They are friendly, they engage with you, they take their time with patients one-on-one. I think that's very commendable.
In terms of the specialist surgeries that we're doing, we've continued because this is the only way out for Nigeria. We have to be able to show people that we can perform a lot of these surgeries that have taken out over $1 billion a year out of this country. I mean, so many people go to various parts of the world, the Far East, India, Pakistan. You know, there's so many of these areas, but I'm glad to say that even across the country, people have taken a cue from some of what we've done here.
Those guys are lifesavers. Their attitude towards our work is powerful. Most times we always come here at night, at midnight, 11, 12, 1 a.m. And I remember one of those nights, you see the way these guys were running around, making sure that if not because we came to Garik that night, I might have lost I would have lost my wife, honestly, because she was like almost dying. You do get, and I really thumb up for those guys at the A&E.
The services are quite broad, from basic healthcare services to procedures as complicated as open heart surgeries, kidney transplants, IVF, and many more. Garik Hospital has become a preferred option with huge success rates. But that's not all. As much as the hospital's management thought it important to invest in the structural upgrade, developing its human resources has also been paramount.
PPP sector, which is what Garik represents, is the reason for employment. So, and training and retraining and increasing capacity to develop. So that's also you know, a big plus for us. So people get experience and they are better at the job they do. They get trained also. Garik Hospital started a medical training program for postgraduate studies of doctors, and that has caught like wildfire in a way that the pass rate is among the highest in this country. So we're already producing specialists for the Nigerian market, which I think, wow, I'm pretty happy about that.
So in the areas of capacity building, Garik Hospital has actually done a lot. Presently, Garik Hospital offers postgraduate training for doctors in pediatrics, in family medicine, in obstetrics and gynecology, and also anesthesia. This is capacity building for our country, Nigeria, and actually would certainly improve our community. Many of these people have actually completed their training. Some have moved on, and they're adding value to our country, Nigeria.
Let me talk in general. If you look around the hospital, you'll find out that we have spent an enormous amount of time and resources in training our staff about simple etiquette and attitude to work, attitude to our patients, attitude to our colleagues. Because one of the things that discourages people most about any medical facilities, you walk into it and you're talking to somebody and the person is walking away or not being polite.
One of the main benefits that I've achieved in this setup is that of fulfillment. Fulfillment professionally, because in this setup, the management has been able to provide the wherewithal which we use in order to achieve our aims and objectives. So for me, the main benefit is that of fulfillment professionally. Also, in this setup, we have opportunities for training.
So many of the equipment that we have now, where I came from, we didn't have such equipment. And so the wealth of experience is there, that we have high-end equipment for different, to diagnose patients. That enough, it's something that I can say, yes, I've seen this, I've seen that, I've used this, like that. And the kind of people I've come across, and the areas that I've worked, the people I've interacted with in the course of my duty, I can categorically tell you that it's something interesting.
I started with a matron before I was promoted to head of nursing services, also in charge of intensive care unit. So it has really been a wonderful experience working in a hospital where you work with people who are ready to put in their best in serving humanity on health. You work with things, you see everything you need to work with is there. So at the end of it, you're happy. As a medical staff, you put in your best and the patient is out.
The first challenge to Garik Hospital PPP was political in nature. The fact that the government of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, which was courageous enough to concession a hospital, even though on an experimental basis, changed the same month that the concession happened. The new people that came in, even though from the same political party, PPP, it was more like we were enemies.
One of the difficulties has been the question of cost containment. Has been one of the most difficult things, because we have no powers of legislation, so we have to look at the needs of the ordinary person. How do we receive them? How do we treat them? How do we evaluate them? How do we raise sufficient funds to continue in that trend of improving the quality of care within affordable limits?
Biggest challenge you'll find is a patient that comes through your accident and emergency department has either had some form of traumatic injury and is major, with fractures, with chest injuries, with head injuries, and then they don't have a penny to pay for it. But because of our corporate social responsibility, we have a duty to see, and it is enforced, that within the first 24 hours, patient comes in must be resuscitated. Yes, there are some that after 24 hours you've stabilized them, you say, okay, you haven't got money, then we're able to move them to another center. For others, we just bear the losses.
And for members of staff, working in Garik Hospital has been quite rewarding. Management and staff have successfully raised the bar of healthcare delivery in Nigeria, and their achievements oust many others here. Now demands on them are high, but they are trusted to deliver on their mark.
Working here on a typical day, it feels very challenging because of the kind of setup we have. It is very demanding, and the expectations from the management and from our clients is high. So we have to be up and doing in order to meet these expectations. So that makes it very challenging. A typical day is very, very busy in this hospital.
With the influx of patients that we have now, when you go down to the specialist clinic, areas that I monitor, you need to just talk to the people, calm them, and make sure they get to see the respective doctors they have come to see, or the areas they need to go to, maybe laboratory, maybe radiology. That is tasking, and as well as calm down so many patients with fear. You know, when they come to the hospital, they're not just coming for shopping, window shopping, they are sick. And they need someone there to reassure them, to make them feel comfortable that in the right place and in the right hands.
After 10 years, they've still got so much to achieve, and the management is making sure of that with the remaining period of the concession.
Biggest challenge has been what? Attitude. Attitude to care, attitude to work. And if we get it right at this point, we have succeeded. We have actually succeeded, but the good thing also is that there is mobility of labor. So you pick people and they come into our system. You train them and they become more marketable. But because there is mobility of labor, they will also leave. And you also have to continue that training and retraining process. It is a challenge, but it's also a good thing because our society benefits from it. Beyond that also, the hospital is rather small. The vision at that time, FCT was meant to be a small city, but of course the population has exploded. So that actually means the hospital, as well as it was built at that time, cannot cope with the population of Abuja. And unfortunately, there's really no room for expansion laterally, except upwards. But that means actually maybe pulling down the structure and rebuilding.
Many babies are born with heart problems. We must have a heart center that's working and is affordable to the people, whose costs are not exactly what you find in the private practice. We are already on the kidney transplant program almost perfected. Garik Hospital, in terms of helping the infertile couples, is the only general hospital in this country that produces test tube babies effortlessly. That has to continue. The next main medical issue that we would like Garik to address in the next 5 years is cancer. There are no many solutions at that level to cancer. So we haven't got a choice. We know it and we're going to go for it.
5 years ago we were not able to do that, but currently we do that. So we're hoping that in terms of the challenge of medical tourism in Nigeria, that Garik Hospital will have its role to play in the future in stemming the flow of that.
We would love to go on to do surgical procedures, from gastric sleeve to gastric bypasses to what are called, lap bands and so on. But I am hoping that this is the next step that we're going to move on.
We should be able to introduce more services in the future. We're actually looking at oncology services. Many Nigerians travel outside this country to be able to receive cancer care. It's an area of concern to us, and we're looking at the fact that we'll be able to introduce these services in the nearest future.
Now there's just 5 years to go on the concession agreement, but there's no doubt the hospital's good works have ended a place of lasting relevance among health institutions in Nigeria.